Thanks for showing up, everybody. Dr. Peter Glidden here, your steadfast advocate for health. We're going to give a couple of minutes to let people populate into the room. I think we have 60 people now, more or less. For those of you that are new to this venue, I am a licensed naturopathic physician. I graduated from Bastyr University of Naturopathic Medicine in 1991. And since 1988, I've been practicing naturopathic medicine, primary care naturopathic medicine in clinical settings. So I have 28 years of clinical experience as a licensed, regulated naturopathic physician. Currently am licensed to practice naturopathic medicine in the great state of Minnesota. So it's an interesting perspective that the naturopathic medical profession brings to the table, and it is one that the majority of people in the United States, Canada, and quite frankly the world have only a mediocre understanding of, a very tiny understanding window of what naturopathic medicine is. And I've dedicated the last half of my life here to helping people understand the simple truths of naturopathic medicine, because as far as I'm concerned, seeing what I have seen people recover from and seeing what I have seen people suffer from needlessly over the last 28 years, something's got to change. My people are destroyed by lack of knowledge. Conventionally trained medical doctors don't know anything about anything except pharmacy and surgery. And this is a gigantic problem that we're going to get into here in just a minute. So by way of education and by way of perspective, gaining perspective and knowledge, I'm happy to be with you this evening to tell you everything that I know about a misunderstood nutritional supplement, Colloidal Silver, and what it exactly is, how it works, and how you can use it to your advantage. Knowledge, in point of fact, is power. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Every little bit helps in order for yours truly to gain social media momentum. So if you like what you're hearing here tonight, if you like the information that I distribute via YouTube and Facebook and my website, glidden.healthcare. Don't be shy. Please like us and subscribe and tell everybody in your world about what we are up to. This is, in point of fact, our modus operandi. My colleague, Dr. Joel Wallach, was in charge of a $27 million research project from 77 to 82, something like that. And part of that project was Dr. Wallach working at Yerkes Primate Research Center at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. He was working with rhesus monkeys, and he discovered the cause and the cure for cystic fibrosis. The cause and the cure for cystic fibrosis. It was a deficiency in the trace mineral selenium in the blood of the pregnant mother monkey. If the mother's body didn't have enough selenium, the genes that coded for lung function in the babies broke down and mutated. The baby was born with cystic fibrosis. If the mother's body was replete with selenium, then there was no gene mutation and the little baby monkeys were born without cystic fibrosis. Wallach could turn it on or off in the little baby monkeys by giving or withholding selenium, the trace mineral selenium, from the mother's diet. And for this remarkable insight and contribution to modern American medicine, Yerkes Primate Research Center fired Dr. Wallach and blackballed the research because it was so completely outside of the box of conventional treatment, number one. And number two, selenium, of course, is a naturally occurring substance, and you cannot hold the patent rights to selenium, so there's no profit motive there. So those of us involved in holistic medicine discovered a long, long time ago that the front door of medicine is guarded by the pharmaceutical industry and moneyed interests, and also, quite frankly, by a lot of intellectual bias and inertia. So we are attempting to disseminate our perspective, our knowledge base, our point of view about holistic medical therapeutics to as many people as we can by virtue of a grassroots coalition. So this is it, baby. This is where the rubber hits the road. You know, a long time ago, not really such a long time ago, but it started a long time ago, and it is still a phenomenon which exists today, although less and less so. Medical professionals, whether they were chiropractors or homeopaths, medical doctors, acupuncturists, whatever, would get together once a year for a medical convention. And not only would they come together to hear about the latest research, you know, millions of dollars worth of research developed at universities and research facilities, but mostly to just share their experiences with their colleagues about what works and what didn't work. A lot of this kind of boots on the ground, old-fashioned sharing of information, clinical information about what works, has been lost. And we are overshadowed now in the 21st century by the specter of double-blinded, placebo-controlled, pharmaceutical-centrist, extremely well-funded research. And, you know, if you haven't spent $40 million in research money, then nobody's going to listen to you. And that's just a sad state of affairs, because it makes the entire research thing lopsided. And, you know, then to add insult to injury, if the pharmaceutical industry is doing research about the effectiveness of a particular drug and they do 100 studies on the drug, and 90 of the studies show that there were no positive benefits or negative benefits, and 10 studies show that there were positive benefits, they're going to publish the 10 studies and sweep under the rug the 90 studies that showed it was bad. So this, of course, is what happens inside of a medical monopoly. And we haven't had a medical monopoly, or we've been suffering from a medical monopoly for the last 100 years, more or less. The only medicine that people's insurance covers is MD-directed medicine. The only medicine that they know anything about, that they're taught anything about in school, is MD-directed medicine. The only medicine that they make TV shows about is MD-directed medicine. The only medicine that universities do research on is MD-directed medicine. And we have been culturally conditioned to believe that everybody but the MD is a back-of-the-bus quack with substandard dangerous training. It's a lie. Quite frankly, the opposite is true. And I think this would be a good segue to begin tonight's presentation on colloidal silver from the holistic perspective. Let's hit the ground running. Now, interestingly enough, the number one reason that people visit their MDs is because of ignorance and the monopoly, right? You've been shelling out thousands of dollars in medical insurance premiums over the course of your entire life. And so finally, when you do get sick, heaven forbid, you're going to cash in on some of that. So you go to the doctor that your insurance will pay for. In most states in the United States, medical insurance does not cover naturopathic medicine, does not cover chiropractic medicine. If it does, only in a very limited way. It certainly doesn't cover homeopathy or acupuncture, traditional Chinese medicine, herbalism, etc., 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 or the oldest medicine on planet Earth, Ayurveda. Won't cover that. But it will cover the medicine that the MDs are trained in. And it might interest you to know that your medical doctor may be the nicest person that God ever created. But your medical doctor doesn't know what's best for you. Your medical doctor only knows what they've been trained in. And what they've been trained in is one teeny piece of the pie of medical science. But the pharmaceutical industry and the American Medical Association and Health Canada, and I don't know what it is in the European Union, have sold you the notion for the last 95 years that if the MD doesn't know it, then nobody does. And the MD has some secret decoder ring to all things medical, and everybody else is a back-of-the-bus quack with substandard dangerous training. This, of course, is nonsense. It's not true. It is actually the antithesis of the truth. Because in the United States, the leading cause of death is MD-directed medical therapeutics. 780,000 people a year, more or less, die because they entertain the services of a medical doctor. And in the United States, the leading cause of bankruptcy? Medical bills. Which leads one to, quite frankly, an eye-opening, startling conclusion. The most expensive medicine is the one that doesn't work. While the medical doctors have been in charge of the research, dissemination, and delivery of medicine exclusively, for the last 100 years, we're all getting sicker. Life expectancy is getting shorter. Obesity is out of control. Autism is out of control. Arthritis, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, out of control. And yet, now in the United States, thanks to Obamacare, it's mandatory to buy medical insurance, which gives you access to a failed system of medicine. Quite frankly, it's all time we collectively woke up. Now, don't get me wrong. Medical doctors are most awesomely excellent at trauma care, surgery when it's necessary, and a handful of infectious diseases. That's their wheelhouse. And quite frankly, if I was the Surgeon General, it would be illegal to go to a medical doctor unless you needed surgery, had a traumatic event, or you were suffering from an infection that didn't yield to some other type of therapeutic. That would be it. We don't go to chiropractors for open heart surgery. And don't get me wrong, I love chiropractors. Chiropractors have helped me a tremendous amount. But we're not going to go to them for surgery because it's not their thing. Well, in this physician's opinion, nor should you go to a medical doctor if you're suffering with a chronic illness, because it's not their thing. And quite frankly, the chances are if you engage their therapeutics, you're going to get worse. Because think about it, of the thousands of prescription medications, the only ones that cure anything are antibiotics, and those are starting to fail us. Your medical doctor is not trained in how to cure disease. That's revelation number 2. Your medical doctor can't even cure heartburn. They can manage it. They can't cure high blood pressure. They can't cure asthma. They can't cure anything, for goodness sakes. They can manage it. Like painting over the mold in the basement. It's only a matter of time until more mold comes because you didn't take care of the leak that was causing the water damage that made the mold be there in the first place. So for goodness sakes, ladies and gentlemen, it is time that we all collectively pulled our heads out of the sand and said, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm going to start to educate myself about other methods of medicine. And in my opinion, the best place to go for that is my website, glidden.healthcare, glidden.healthcare. If you like this free event, you're going to love the stuff that's on my website. I have hundreds of hours of instructional videos on my website which give you perspective on the holistic, naturopathic understanding of most chronic diseases. This is our expertise and knowledge that is so far outside of your zone that you didn't even know you didn't know that. For instance, did you know that heartburn is caused by not enough stomach acid instead of too much? Did you know that the leading cause of high blood pressure is not enough calcium, not enough magnesium? Did you know that? It's not genetic. If you're suffering with heartburn or high blood pressure, you have a bad doctor, not a bad gene. And these things are relatively easy to fix with diet and nutrition. But I digress. Tonight, we are talking about one of my most favorite add-ons to a comprehensive medical nutrition therapeutic strategy. Colloidal Silver my favorite colloidal silver, Argentin 23, made by the Natural Immunogenics Company. Now, I am not affiliated in any way, shape, or form with Natural Immunogenics, and only recently have I started offering Argentin 23 on my website. You can purchase Argentin 23 on my website. We have a contract that we've signed. Everybody that sells Argentin 23 signs a contract with Natural Immunogenics promising that they're not going to undercut anybody else. So the price that I'll charge for Argentin 23 is the same price that everybody else in the world charges for it. If you like the information that I'm disseminating, if you like what I am up to, if you like the stance for your health that Glidden Naturopathic, Glidden.healthcare is taking on your behalf, then you can support the cause by purchasing your colloidal silver through my store. But again, that's not mandatory. Okay? Full disclosure here. Let's hit the ground running. Now, I like to start at the beginning, and the first thing to have an understanding about when we're talking about colloidal silver is, well, what the heck is a colloid in the first place? That would be a good thing to understand. Well, medical dictionaries, scientific dictionaries define a colloid as a homogeneous non-crystalline substance consisting of large molecules or ultra-microscopic particles 1 to 1,000 nanometers in diameter, woohoo, of one substance dispersed through a second substance. So basically it's eeny, weeny, teeny particles of something dissolved in a liquid medium. And most of the time the liquid medium that colloids are dissolved in is pharmaceutical grade purified water. Now, one of the attributes of a colloid is that it doesn't separate. You know, if you have fresh squeezed orange juice and you leave it in the refrigerator for an hour and then you go to get it, the pulp has gone to the bottom and the liquid is on top, or the cream rises to the top of the milk, right? Well, with a colloid, the particles are so small that they are suspended in solution almost perfectly. And you could leave a bottle of colloidal silver on the shelf for 100 years and the particles would not fall to the bottom of the bottle. It's very interesting. Colloids are a very interesting aspect of chemistry. Now, technically speaking, colloids include gels, sols, emulsions, and the particles do not settle and cannot be separated out by ordinary filtering, right? It's almost as if the particle that's in the water is married to the water and you can't separate the two. That's a very poetic way of describing it, and it doesn't really do it justice. But I think you get the idea. Now, when we're talking about colloids, especially colloidal silver, size matters, baby. But in this conversation, smaller is better. Smaller is better when it comes to colloids. Now, according to the International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry, in order for a colloid to be a colloid, the dissolved particle, which is in suspension in the pharmaceutical grade water, purified water, must be at least 1 nanometer in diameter. Now, that's pretty small. A nanometer is 1 billionth of a meter. You know how much a billion is? It's 1,000 million. You know how much a million is? It's 1,000,000. So, it's really, 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 really small. Interestingly enough, the particle size in my favorite colloidal silver, Argentin 23, manufactured by Natural Immunogenics, is smaller still. It's not measured on a nanometer scale. Well, you can measure it on a nanometer scale, but mostly it's a picometer. What the heck is a picometer? You think a nanometer is small. A picometer makes a nanometer look like King Kong. It's 1/1,000,000th of a meter, which is 1,000 billion. You know, my mind stopped working after I said 1,000,000, which is a million. I mean, that's a big enough number to comprehend. In this case, a small enough number. But for goodness sakes, the size of the dissolved particle, in this case silver, in the water is extremely important. Now, there's a lot of conjecture and debate as to actually how the colloidal silver exerts its biological action. That hasn't been sorted out yet. There's a lot of research in that area, right? This isn't, again, something that's big on anybody's radar because you can't patent. Basically, anybody can make colloidal silver. The Natural Immunogenics Company, however, has discovered a way to make the silver into a picometer size, and they have patented that process. So you can't get a smaller silver anywhere. Well, maybe you can, but if I'm not aware of it, if you can. As far as I'm concerned, the smallest size silver particle is found in the Argentin 23 family of products. Interestingly enough, the average size is 8/100ths of a nanometer, which is 8 picometers. It's really small. Now, there's something about the size of the particle which gives rise to an electrical charge, an ionic charge of sorts. And part of the speculation as to how a colloidal silver works is by virtue of its ionic charge. And the smaller the particle, the stronger the size, the stronger the charge. But again, that's a question for debate. I can tell you, though, hands down, just like used to happen at medical conferences where doctors would get together and share their experiences. I've been doing this for 28 years clinically, and there is no colloidal silver product that I have ever used that even comes close to the effectiveness of Argentin 23. It is the most effective colloidal silver that I've ever seen. And interestingly enough, technically, because of its size, it's not a colloid. It's a hydrosol. But you say silver hydrosol and nobody knows what the heck you're talking about. Kind of like you say naturopathic medicine. Nobody knows what you're talking about. Naturopath? Whoa, we don't need hiking trails. We need jobs. The governor of some southern state, North Carolina, South Carolina, maybe Georgia, actually said that to a colleague of mine back in the 80s. We were trying to get naturopathic medicine licensed and regulated in one of those states, and the governor actually said that. Naturopaths? We don't need hiking trails. We need jobs. So, there's a big learning curve here, right? But in point of fact, because this is really small stuff like picometer, teeny weeny jelly beanie, technically it's a hydrosol, not a colloid. But that's really neither here nor there for, our purposes. But it's an interesting academic distinction. And by the way, so one of my pet peeves in holistic medicine, quite frankly, all medicine, one of my pet peeves is lack of validation. Anybody can say virtually anything they want to about anything. And if they couch their terms in just the right language, they can make something seem more effective than it really is. Pharmaceutical companies do this all the time. And one of my strengths, one of the things that I bring to the table that not very many people do, quite frankly, I'm going to ring my own bell here, is I advocate things which have been proven to be effective. either through repeated clinical experience or some type of objective discovery. I mean, you prove it, is my motto. Well, the Natural Immunogenics Company does that. They use flame atomic absorption spectroscopy to guarantee, measure, and codify the size of their particles. And by the way, this is kind of a big deal. They're the only colloidal silver company in the world that I'm aware of that does this. This is not the machine that they use, but this is a picture of a flame atomic absorption spectroscopy machine. It's like $65,000. It's a very expensive piece of equipment. And it gives extremely accurate readings. And as far as I know, Natural Immunogenics is the only company that uses this machine to actually verify the size of their silver, which beats a poke in the eye with a sharp stick. And also, by way of education, you cannot use a dissolved solids meter to tell you how concentrated or the particle size of a colloid or a hydrosol. You can't do it. I mean, you can't see a nano-sized particle with a microscope. You need an electron microscope to see that, right? Nor can you measure the concentration inside of a colloid or a hydrosol with a dissolved solids meter, you know, like the ones that water companies use to test whether or not there's crap in their water. You can't use that. It's the wrong dog for the hunt here. You need the flame atomic absorption spectroscopy machine, and there's only one company in the world that I know that does that, and that's another reason why I'm such a fan of Argentin 23. So, the actual size of the silver molecule is important. I touched on this a little while ago. The smaller, the stronger the ionic charge, and the more effective it is clinically. And its concentration. So we've got the size of the silver, and then we have the amount of the silver that's put into the water as a colloid, or in this case, a hydrosol, right? So there's the size, and then there's how many of the molecules of silver are actually in there. These two things are important in order to demonstrate clinical effectiveness. And as with everything, I say this, if I've said this once, I've said it a million times. Not all nutritional supplements are created equally. They are not. There's a great deal of difference in the recipes and the manufacturing procedures. And so it is with colloidal silver. Here is an example. Now, on the side of the picture closest to me is a picture of an electron microscope, which is magnified, in this case, 100,000 times. 100,000 times of Argentin 23. Next to it is one of their competitors. I can't mention the name of the competitor for legal reasons, but you see that big glob of black stuff? See that? Those are silver particles which have been clumped together. And when the particles get all clumpy like that, they lose their ionic charge. And they also are really quite big on a relative scale of things. And this precludes their, or negates their effectiveness clinically. Now you can see this was a laboratory analysis done with the flame absorption spectroscopy. They claimed, the competitor of Argentin 23 claimed to be 200 parts per million. They actually were 71. The conductivity of 46.9, which is a bad thing. And the Argentin 23 claimed 23 parts per million. They actually had 23.13 parts per million. And their conductivity was 19, which is a very good thing. So, objective laboratory data here, which proves that at least in this case, Argentin 23 was superior to its competitor. They did it again. You can see this one claimed 30 parts per million, but it actually had 34.2 parts per million. And the conductivity was 892, which is basically means it's crap. And you can see here, the particles, even though they're similar in size to the Argentin 23, 34 parts per million as opposed to 23 parts per million, but they had clumped together. And usually when this happens, it's because of impurities that are in the water. Impurities cause cross-linking at the end of the silver molecules, and they start to stick together like, like magnets. And then more and 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 more stick together, and then they all clump together, and then you're SOL. So, again, you can see that with the Argentin 23, there's none of that nonsense is happening at all. Again, this is where the rubber hits the road, right? I told you, and it's the truth, that this product is the most effective colloidal silver I've ever seen. And there's a reason for it, which we can discover through the scientific method. Now, anybody that even thinks about colloidal silver will at some point in time do a Google search for colloidal silver, and they'll read about this guy in the 60s who made his own colloidal silver in his garage. He drank gallons of it a day and he turned blue. His skin turned blue permanently. When this happens, it's called argyria. Argyria, that's fancy schmancy doctor talk for your skin turns blue. And this only happens if the colloidal silver, the particle sizes are really big and there's stuff in the water that the silver is dissolved into. Salts and other chemicals that shouldn't be there. These have a reaction to the silver and cause argyria if you drink boatloads of it like that guy did. He should have joined the Blue Man Group, right? Probably did not do that. But is that going to happen with colloidal silver? Well, let's look at the numbers. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, for health purposes, established a daily oral reference dose for silver over the course of a 70-year study. And 350 micrograms a day is a safe amount according to the Environmental Protection Agency. With Argentin 23's colloidal silver, family of colloidal silver products, if you take 1 tablespoon a day, you'll get 115 micrograms. If you take 1 tablespoon 3 times a day, you'll get 345 micrograms of silver, which is underneath the safe daily dose limit. Now you can see if it's 50 parts per million, 100 parts per million, 250 parts per million, and so forth and so on, you're going to die. Well, maybe you're not going to die, but you're not going to be well. Because like everything else, there's a Goldilocks sweet spot. Too much water is going to kill you. Too much oxygen is going to kill you. Talk to any scuba diver, they'll tell you. Too much of anything, right? There's a sweet spot for everything, the Goldilocks zone. Well, another reason I love Argentin 23s is virtually impossible to overdose on it. And, quite frankly, the 350 micrograms a day EPA number is extremely conservative. But you don't need to worry about it, and it's been studied. This institution, the Foundation for Collaborative Medicine and Research, studied Argentin 23 and says it is without hesitation that I support and applaud Natural Immunogenics for making a pure and effective professional silver hydrosol product that is safe for patient use. And it cannot cause you to turn blue. Okay? Okay. Science is a good thing. Now, the benefits of colloidal silver are protein, especially Argentin 23. It enhances antibiotic activity against gram-negative bacteria. They did a study that showed Argentin 23 is 30 times as effective as vancomycin at killing bugs. Vancomycin is a very strong antibiotic. 30 times as effective as vancomycin. And it has no side effects. And it is unbelievably expensive. Gee, I wonder why Big Pharma doesn't want to get behind that. Silver nanoparticle interactions with the immune system, implications for health and disease. There have been more and more studies done by independent organizations now trying to sort this out because they're seeing pretty remarkable things happen clinically. And you know, not every research facility in the world is driven by pharmaceutical money. Most are, but there are some that actually are humanitarian. We need hundreds more. Silver in many different forms, not only colloids, but silver mixed with different types of sulfur, have been used in burn clinics and wound clinics for 100 years. So silver has a very strong track record of antimicrobial activity. Now, this is one of my favorite studies. This was done with Argentin 23. They took MRSA, you know, that flesh-eating bacteria, the stuff that'll kill you, right? Make a zombie out of you in a minute. Chew your face right off, right? They took it in a petri dish. They grew it. And then they added Argentin 23 to it. And within 5 minutes, it was 100% dead. MRSA, flesh-eating bacteria, antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Eliminated, killed, destroyed with Argentin 23. And that beats a poke in the eye with a sharp stick. 100% MRSA death, I'm good with that, and you should be too. Natural immunogenics also uses glass bottles exclusively. And this might seem like a minor detail, but it's actually really not a minor detail at all, because as everybody knows, plastic bottles turn people into zombies. I mean, everybody knows that. Plastic bottles turn people into zombies, right? We all know that. Are we all good with that? All right. It doesn't really have anything to do with zombification, which, by the way, is not a real thing. However, when you compare glass bottles to plastic bottles, there's less impurities in the glass bottle. And if an impurity slips into the liquid, you know, which is pharmaceutical grade purified water, if there's stuff in the bottle that leaches in, it's not a good thing. Plastics are known, this is again academic, this is not debatable, to leach nasty things into whatever's inside the bottle. Bisphenol A messes up with the blood-brain barrier. Bisphthalate, excuse me, I had something stuck in my teeth. Phthalate, bisphthalate, nasty chemicals. Antimony has been, even, you know, the plastic that's supposed to be good, the PET stuff. Well, they've shown that if you have a liquid in there and it's heated to a certain temperature, I forget, like 105 degrees, I don't know, like the back of your car in Arizona on a summer day, it leaches antimony into solution, and that's really not a good thing. Because one of the things that happens here, as we saw in those other slides, is the stuff that leaches into the water starts to react with these eeny-weeny teeny silver particles. And it messes up their ionic charge, and it makes them start to clump together. And when that happens, you start to lose the clinical effectiveness of the colloid, or in this case, the hydrosol. Glass doesn't degrade. Plastics do. So you can keep a stockpile of colloidal silver in your glass bottle in your armamentarium forever, right? And interestingly enough, this is something that I was not aware of I think I was taught this a long time ago, but I forgot it. Gases can get in to the solution through a plastic. That's interesting. Oxygen and carbon dioxide. We know that when oxygen gets into something, whatever it reacts with starts to oxidize, and that's not a good thing. So one more strike against the use of a plastic container, even if it's, the new fancy-dancy PET containers, and a really throwback to the original old-fashioned glass, which is superior across the board. Now, the Federal Trade Commission, you may want to know this, and I've done a whole webinar on this. According to the Food and Drug Administration in the United States, the only thing that can treat a disease is a drug. And according to the Federal Trade Commission, once you enter the zone of commerce and you start selling things, your freedom of speech goes away. Now, as a licensed naturopathic physician, in states where I'm licensed and regulated to do so, I can tell patients to do whatever I want to treat their disease. And I can sell them the supplement and make money from it because that's legal. It's covered by my license. But in a public forum like this, even though I'm a naturopathic doctor, because I have decided to sell Colloidal Silver, Argentin 23 products on my website, once I decided to do that, my freedom of speech has gone away. So I cannot tell you, the general public, about the relationship between Argentin 23 and specific disease states because that's illegal, believe it or not. And if your head just did not explode, you haven't been paying attention. This outrageous control of information by the Food and Drug Administration and the Federal Trade Commission is one of the leading reasons why everybody is sick and suffering. But I digress. So, when should you use Argentin 23? Well, let's talk about it. Anything needing antibiotic assistance, any type of anything in your body that's going on that may or may not be related to an infectious agent would be a good circumstance under which to use Argentin 23 to support and promote the structure and function of your immune system, to upregulate your immune system, to help your immune system, give your immune system a leg up. Cuts, scrapes, bites, burns, right? You can put the Colloidal Silver, the Argentin 23 on topically. Great stuff. Got a problem with your throat, got a problem with your ears, got a problem with your teeth, got a problem with your gums, Argentin 23, Argentin 23, Argentin 23, Argentin 23. You want to have really healthy sinuses? Argentin 23 in the spray applicator. You need upper respiratory tract help? You want upper respiratory tract immune support? Well, I've got just the thing for you, ladies and gentlemen. Get a nebulizer, $40. Put the Colloidal Silver in it, the Argentin 23, and adults or kids breathe that stuff right in, baby. Again, beats a poke in the eye with a sharp stick. No side effects, no danger, no hazard, only immune support. You got something going on in your digestive tract that would benefit from immune support? Swallow a teaspoon of Colloidal Silver 3 times a day, or do a retention enema. Ouch! A big fan of colon hydrotherapy, colonics and enemas. I am. Do a retention enema with Colloidal Silver, Argentin 23. Not a bad idea. And of course, if you want to kill a zombie, nothing better than Argentin 23. And, this opens it up for discussion. Argentin 23 is so effective that it will even kill the undead. And that is a trick, ladies and gentlemen. Here are my favorites. The Natural Immunogenics offers Argentin 23 in many different iterations. This is what I have in my cabinet. I've got the Argentin 23 in a 2-ounce spray bottle. Just a spray bottle. Really great for topical applications of the product. They also have it in a nasal applicator. This is one of my favorites. I think this is my all-around favorite. I've been dealing with sinus conditions on and off forever. Finally getting to the bottom of it by using this stuff. Put that little nasal applicator in your nose, take a couple sprays, tilt your head up, take a couple sprays, tilt your head all the way back, take a couple sprays, and then reverse with the other nostril. Do that 3, 4, 5 times a day. Fantastic. You can also just get it in a little small 2-ounce container. But, you know, that's a good travel size, right? It's a good travel size if you're on the road as much as I am. You can drink it down. You can refresh the spray bottles with it. But a better solution for that is the 4-ounce or the 8-ounce bottle. Now, they also have a gallon bottle, but I don't sell that because it's too expensive for me to stock and ship. So this is the long and the short of it, ladies and gentlemen. What's the dose, you might ask? Well, nobody knows. Nobody knows. Start somewhere, see how you do. It's very difficult to overdo it with this stuff. Don't take more than 1 teaspoon 3 times a day, unless you're really sick. And then there are clinics, progressive clinics, where this stuff right here, taken out of the bottle because it's completely sterile, is put into intravenous solutions and given as intravenous treatments for things like Lyme disease. You'd have to go to a clinic for that, right? So get yourself some Argentin 23 and give it a ride. And if you want to support the cause here, get it at glidden.healthcare. And by the way, just in the last 2 minutes here, I want to show you something else about my website. So here's my website, glidden.healthcare. That's glidden.healthcare. On my website, I have a number of free and subscription service material that you can use to educate yourself about how you can get your body into the game of healing. I have an online self-help health recovery program called the Dr Glidden subscription service. We have 5 levels to the subscription service: the trial size, the supporter size, advocate size, ambassador size. If you become a subscriber with me as an ambassador, it's a profit share. You get unlimited free shares with everything that I do. So if you have someone in your life that's suffering with a health condition and you want to bring them into the light of science-based, clinically verified medical nutrition, you just click on the video that is appropriate and you can email it to them, and it's free for them. It's part of your subscription. If as an ambassador, which is $34 a month, I've spent more on Starbucks coffee on most months than $34 a month. You get other people to become subscribers. You get a 25% affiliate commission for every month that they are a subscriber. This is how we're going to grow our grassroots coalition of the informed. $20 a month subscription level, $12 a month. And if you just want to try it out for size for one day, it's $5. This is the best thing to happen to health education since the invention of the sterile technique. As God is my witness. I'm very proud of this. And I encourage everybody here in the listening audience to get on board. And let me just give you a sample of some of the stuff that I have to offer. Here's a webinar that I did on the 12 bad foods. You know that there are 12 foods that nobody should eat? I've got tons of information like this is free on my website, and I'm not logged in here as a subscriber. But I have hundreds of hours of instructional videos here that explain in really easy to understand terms what you can do to get your body into the game of healing if you've been diagnosed with asthma, arthritis, type 2 diabetes, whatever. We are a grassroots coalition of the informed, ladies and gentlemen, and as my second cousin, 7 times removed Benjamin Franklin said, we must hang together, or most certainly we will hang alone. I am your steadfast advocate for health, Dr. Peter Glidden. Thanks for hanging out with me for the last 42 minutes. God willing, and the creek don't rise, I'll see you around campus. Until then, live long and prosper.